Not another spreadsheet video of me trapped in the corner. Hello folks, so do you remember we recently did a little video looking at the Model 3, the Tesla Model 3, and just looking at that, the different finance options to see which one worked. And amazingly, right now at the moment, the PCP sort of worked out on that, although there weren't any deals knocking around at the time. We're going to do the same thing with the Model Y, which is going to be a very, very popular car for Tesla. I've got absolutely no doubt. So let's have a little look at that now. Enjoy. So just before we get too far into that, let's just have a look at the Model Y and see why we think it might be a big seller. So the Model Y, if you're not familiar with it, is basically kind of a bigger version of the Model 3. It's a bit taller, bigger boot, more headroom, just a more practical Model 3, I guess, which will appeal to quite a few people. I think the one thing people have said with the Model 3 is it's fine, but if you've got a family, getting all your stuff in, blah, blah, blah. Personally, I think they've got tons of space in, but if you need a little bit more, maybe the Model Y is more suitable. So there's going to be two versions of this. At launch, you're going to have the long range with 315 miles of range, 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. That one's going to start at just a few quid under 55 grand. And then you've got the performance version. Takes away slightly on the range, just 298 miles of range, 0 to 60 is 3.5 seconds. And that one's 65 grand. And that's before you've added any metallic paint or changed the wheels or done anything else, you know, any kinds of options. That's as it comes price. Okay, so what can we find on this on a lease? Now, the problem we've got here is actually getting quotes online for the other types of finance because the amount to borrow is so large. So I'm going to reduce that as much as I can. And I'm actually going to look at this with 12 months down. Okay. I know we usually look at 3 months as the initial payment, but just to reduce the amount to borrow in the other examples as much as possible, I'm going to look at 12 months down over 3 years with 10,000 miles. And that gives us a total up front of, I'm going to call it 66.50 and then 555 a month, okay? Okay, so then the amount we would need to finance would be 48350. It rounds it up to 48400. I'm going to round it down to 48300. Okay, so that gives us 35 monthly payments of 1035. Balloon payment of the end of 19974. And if we look at hire purchase, all I can find on this is 35 grand as the maximum I can borrow. So I'm going to say we're putting 20 grand down and 35 of it. I mean, we're not comparing apples to apples here, are we? We're looking at something really quite different at this stage. Strangely enough, I was just going to show you the Tesla finance numbers on this from Tesla Direct via their website, but bizarrely, there aren't any listed. I guess maybe it's new to market and they haven't got the finance deals in place yet, but it seems a bit odd. Interestingly, though, obviously I'm just doing an example here, so I'm not going to take this into account, but if you buy one for cash, they're knocking about 3.5 grand off right now, and it says delivery early 2022. I'm led to believe these are going to be sort of landed in the country around about March time, so that kind of makes sense. Okay, sometimes I'm worried my videos like this are not dynamic enough, but I think they're always made a lot more exciting by the presence of a spreadsheet, aren't they? So enjoy this. By the way, at this point, give it a thumbs up for the love of God. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. I'm just going to stick a little stat on the screen that shows you how many people watching aren't subscribed. And it makes me sad. So please make me happy. Thank you. Right, so we're looking at 55 grand cash price. A lease would be £6,650 down as a deposit, and then £555 a month, and that's 35 monthly payments. And then there's no balloon payment because with the lease you give it back at the end, and you're looking at a total 26 grand over the 3 years. The hire purchase, obviously I've left this one in there, but it's a bit daft really. We're not comparing apples to apples. The highest hire purchase agreement I could find was 35 grand with an online calculator. So I've had to put in 20 grand deposit and just over £1,000 a month. And at the end of that, you own the car. You've paid 58,185. Don't forget, you've only financed 35 grand of it. Where when we look at the loan and the PCP, we've financed 48.5 grand of it, all bar the shouting. So it's really not a fair comparison. What this probably will do is show you the value in a loan versus a hire purchase. The loan, okay, I only looked at Barclays, literally the only place I looked. £6,650 up front, £1,500 a month, nothing to pay at the end. You own the car, and it's cost you £59,150. So it's cost £1,000 more than hire purchase. With the hire purchase, we've only financed 35 grand of it. With the bank loan, we've financed 48.5 grand. So it's quite a difference there. Right, then finally the PCP. Probably the most popular way of buying this car would be a PCP, I would imagine. So PCP, you're looking at £6,650 deposit, then £1,035 a month, then a balloon payment of £19,975. So you paid £42,875 to lease the car for 3 years on that Admiral PCP, or you've paid 26 grand to lease the car for 3 years under a lease agreement. Okay, so would you think I was a complete nutter if I said that PCP might still be the best way to go on this car? Right, the thing we have to consider, it might not, by the way, it really might not, but the thing we have to consider, the residual value in the car at the end of the first 3 years. And these are crazy times with car prices, like we've never seen before and will probably never see again, due to a whole host of factors that I've discussed in lots of videos, like the semiconductor shortage, COVID, Brexit, you name it, and everything's had some kind of effect on car pricing. Now, the saving to lease that car for 3 years versus a PCP is £16,800. So that's the saving on the deposit and monthly payments that you've paid on a lease compared to the deposit and monthly payments you've paid on that PCP. Now, the residual value is what the car's used value is at the end of the 3 years. So when you would give it back or pay the balloon payment. So your balloon payment on the PCP is £19,975, okay? So if we add that onto the lease saving, that means the residual target value's got to be 36,775 or above for the PCP to, in theory, break even against the lease. And anything under 36,775, you're better off with the lease. Anything over that, you're better off with the PCP. So if that car's worth 30 grand in 3 years, you were £6,800 better off leasing it than you were doing a PCP. If the residual value of that car's 40 grand in 3 years, could happen. I mean, we don't really know, do we? You would have made a few grand back. You've obviously got the hassle of selling it, or we buy any car in it, or however you want to get rid of it. But the problem is, because used car pricing is so unpredictable at the moment, and the car market generally is in such a weird state of flux at the moment, it's very, very difficult to predict which way it's going to go. So if you really just want the car for the first 3 years before you have to start MOTing it and what have you, the lease is going to save you 16,800 quid on the face of it. As in, you pay your money, you give it back at the end. You've obviously got a more manageable monthly payment with the lease as well compared to the PCP. If you want to keep the car, then you're probably better off just doing a bank loan. If you want to potentially make some money with it, but potentially lose some money, and you want to roll the dice a bit, they're the numbers for the PCP. But in this particular example, again, that Admiral one might not be the cheapest or best PCP deal. Once Tesla start offering PCPs, it might be better. Sometimes they'll offer bigger discounts when you use their own finance. But that's where we're looking at on this particular example. So hopefully I've shown you how a lease can be much cheaper than a PCP in the first 3 years, but also give consideration to the residual value of the car and what might happen with that. Now, if it were down to me right now, there's absolutely no way I would do the PCP. Potentially, you've got the biggest gain sitting there with because residual values are really good on Teslas at the moment, but we don't know what else is coming to market, and we know it's going to become a much more competitive section of the market, the EV space, and we don't know what's going to happen to used car prices. I'm sure they're not going to be as they are now in 3 years' time. So I personally wouldn't take the gamble, because I think best case scenario is you get a couple of grand back. But worst case scenario is possibly it's cost you a lot of money. And for me, if it's an EV, I'm always going to want a fairly new one that's got the best possible range available, just again because of my personal use case. So I'd rather have a new one, give it back after 3 years, have another new one, give it back after 3 years. That's just me. There you go. Hopefully a bit of food for thought for you. Not as cut and dried as it may seem. And that's the important thing, I think, when you look at any kind of car finance deal, is that you don't just assume because the deal's best for one kind of car, it's not for the other. I mean, that Peugeot we looked at the other week, all day long you would take the lease on that because it's the best way to do it. It just is. And it's a sensible way to do it. On this, it's a very different kind of car. It's much more of an unknown quantity as to what's going to happen in future. And maybe PCP is the best way to go. I don't think it will be, but I don't know. If someone tells you they do know what's going to happen in 3 years' time, just ask them for the lottery numbers for this Saturday, and you can just go and buy a brand new one cash, because they can obviously see the future. Thanks for watching, guys. Please check out my social media channels, all up there. Lots of updates on all those. My website's the last one there, notaguru.co.uk. You can go along there and you can buy me a coffee if I've helped you out in any of my videos. That's much appreciated. And also got my Amazon link and the Readly trial and all those kind of good things that help the channel out. But social channels I'm trying to post on as regularly as possible. Twitter's probably the one where I'm most prolific. So if you're only going to follow me on one, follow me there maybe. But thanks for watching. Please go and check out this video next, as I think you'll like it. Cheers.